My talk today is going to be about changing the conversation, how communities affect economic growth. Hello everyone, my name is JEMELAHNICKS. I am originally from Toronto, Ontario. I have been living in Calgary for the last 3.5 years, and so far it's been a great learning experience. Since being here, I was able to create my first natural hair meetup, Flawless Kinky Curls, in April 2015. I have been learning so much about Calgary's culture, the people, and the behaviors. You know, just to get a vibe for the city. Every city has its own identity. That's what makes it different and unique. When I first visited Calgary in 2006, it was quite a bit of a culture shock. I was used to seeing people out and about, especially downtown, but after a while, I just told myself that Calgary was just different. I ended up living in Calgary for about a year and a half with my family before I moved back to Toronto. I just did not feel a sense of belonging. Now let's fast forward to our current year, 2016, where we are currently experiencing an economic downturn with an unemployment rate at a high of 10%. I don't know if it's going to get better or worse from here. However, the government has developed a new royalty revenue plan that takes effect on January 1st, 2017. Hopefully this will be a win-win for Alberta. For more information on the royalty revenue plan, check out calgary.ca. So moving forward in this conversation, I would like you to think for a moment, where do you see Calgary in the next 10 years? Is this the city of innovation, sports and entertainment, tourism, finance, energy, or is this a city just well known for its oil and gas? Like I mentioned before, that every city has its own identity, its own flavor. We all contribute to making a city what it is. What do you want to remember Calgary as? This is the city of, and you fill in the blanks. One of the biggest problems I notice in Calgary is that the city tends to keep their eggs in one basket, which then slows diversification. Considering the last 25 years, Calgary has experienced boom and bust periods that has put their economy in a stressful state, causing people to leave. Jane Jacobs, an author and activist, said the most important job of the city is generating wealth. If cities cannot do their job in wealth generation, they cannot do many of the other jobs they need to do to serve their citizens. A city that experiences boom and bust periods throughout the years with slow diversification will face challenges with retaining people. Cities have to become really great at attracting and retaining talented people to see economic growth. We all have a set of skills and or talent that can be used to contribute to the growth and betterment of this city. When I created Flawless Kinky Curls, my mission was to support and educate women of color on their natural hair journeys. I wanted to create a positive environment where we were all connecting with one another and learning from each other. But like any event, facilitating them can be challenging. One of the keys to success, in my opinion, is to never stop growing, always reach for higher heights, and always keep it fresh. In terms of Calgary's economy, how is Calgary reinventing itself to stay fresh? What's new and improved? Well, there are many urban developments spread throughout the city's downtown core. For example, the development of East Village, the new Central Library, the National Music Center, the Green Line Project, and condo developments, just to name a few. These are all great developments that add value to the downtown core, but how is the city connecting people to public places and spaces? In Gord Hume's book on Places and Spaces, he states great public place and spaces help to create vibrant communities and local prosperity, and they can provide a wonderful quality of life for residents and visitors. Generally, public places are social places that are open and accessible to people. For example, public squares, plazas, parks, libraries, and recreational centers, as well as community centers. Would you say that Calgary does a great job at connecting us to these public places? I mean, they own most of these public places, don't they? So, who would be more fitting to engage us to these places? If you look around your community, what do you see? Other than the birds and the trees, what else do you notice? Well, I notice community centers. They're everywhere. There is no real emphasis on community centers out here in Calgary, but they're in every community, whether you work in one, play in one, or live in one. When you think about community centers, what's the first thing that comes to mind? The first thing that comes to my mind is the youth. I also know that community centers are social gathering places where people from different cultures and ethnic backgrounds come to socialize and learn from each other and share ideas. What do community centers in Calgary do? And how do they play a role in our communities? So I started to do some research on my own to gain some understanding about how community centers played a role in shaping our communities. The way I look at it is that if I'm going to build my business here, I better understand how the city operates, and what better place to start than within the communities we live in. I want to read another quote from Gord Hume, where he goes on to say, communities that are welcoming and attractive, offering great amenities and a great place to work, are appealing to families. These places are cultured and fun and have an unrelenting focus on supporting innovation and entrepreneurship. These are the communities that will attract talent and money. In other words, thriving communities have an unrelenting focus on supporting innovation and entrepreneurship. What would you say, Calgary? Would you say that thriving communities create themselves? In other words, by default or by design? Think about that. There is no way that these communities can be created by themselves. It takes strategic planning, but more specifically, it takes cultural planning and urban design. These communities need to be managed, they need to be nourished in order to sustain this welcoming experience for all families. Personally, I do not believe that Calgary has a strong sense of community. I'm sorry, but somewhere along the line you lost it, and I just want to bring it back. I'm taking the initiative to speak on the importance of having a strong community because of its direct effect on businesses. Not having a strong sense of community hurts businesses. Thriving communities are good for business, and they help larger corporations attract high-quality employees. The goal is to create communities that engage the young people and build the skills they need for healthy and fulfilling lives. I went around to some communities to check out their community centers and found that a majority of the centers act in the same way, where there were no youth programs, and most centers close around 4:30 p.m. What time does school finish? I mean, I've been out of school for a bit, but yeah, you know. And what time do most people get off from work? You already know the answer to this, okay? There is no youth development happening in most of these community centers. You can have some centers that value young people and a majority of them don't. It doesn't work like that. Community centers all around the world focus on strengthening their communities through rewarding and supporting youth activities to raise the quality of life. Ipsos conducted the 2016 Citizen Satisfaction Survey report, and in that report, one of the topics discussed was sustainability and how Calgarians are connecting to their communities. The first statement was, "I am proud to be a Calgarian." 45% of you completely agreed with this statement. The second statement was, "I am proud to live in my neighborhood." 34% of you completely agreed. And the third statement was, "I am regularly involved in neighborhood and local community events." Only 6% of you completely agreed. Based on this year's numbers from the Citizen Satisfaction Survey report, I think it's fair to say that the city of Calgary has lost this connectedness to the people, and it's been that way for a long time. When I first visited Calgary in 2006, the disconnectedness that is relevant now was the same for me 10 years ago. Since then, there has been no change with community engagement. Coming from Toronto, I know what it means to come from a strong community. That when things aren't right, we stand up, and when things are going well, we also stand up and we celebrate. I am a product of a strong community. Generally speaking, the people in Toronto care about their city and are proud Torontonians. I read an article about why civic pride is important, and it said, cities with a strong sense of civic pride have happier, more engaged, and more involved residents. Individuals take pride in their cities and recognize that we all have a part to play in taking care of the community. Toronto, for example, has such a strong civic pride because they have thriving civic spaces like Dundas Square or Nathan Phillips Square that connects people. Conversely, when such spaces are lacking, people may feel less connected to each other. Therefore, people tend to keep to themselves more. I find that with Calgary, it's the same thing, where people tend to keep to themselves because they are not connected to civic spaces. We live in such a dynamic city in which everything is connected to everything else. If we can't connect people to public places and spaces, then how can we improve public involvement to increase civic vitality? I believe that the citizens of Calgary are ready for social change because to realize the full potential of this city, we must challenge one another to rethink how we engage, communicate, and collaborate on a daily basis. There needs to be a collaborative approach to building communities that are vibrant, healthy, and sustainable for all. So, the solution. It first starts with the communities in which we live in. Earlier, I mentioned that I did some research on community centers and their role in shaping our communities. I made some phone calls to different cities in Canada and the U.S., and what I gathered was that most community centers are operated and owned by their local government, with the exception of some not-for-profit community centers. So I asked myself, what role does the government play in shaping our communities? Local governments have a key role to play in creating healthy communities. Generally speaking, local governments are responsible for the following: protection of persons and property, so that's local policing and firefighting services, local transportation, planning and development, public utilities, local social welfare services, parks, recreation, and culture. When you take a look at Calgary's city-owned recreational centers versus not-for-profit community centers that are found in approximately 130 communities, which of the two centers are going to have more of an influence within the community? The answer is not-for-profit community centers, and that is because the community centers outnumber city-owned recreational centers in Calgary. So I made a few more phone calls, and this time I was phoning community centers in Calgary to understand their operation and what role they play in shaping our communities. The information I gathered from the phone calls and other sources is that the community centers mostly service events. Why is that? Now, I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers or step on any toes, because I know this does not apply to all community centers, but why is there an imbalance amongst the community centers? Why do a majority of community centers service events while others do not? Calgary, this is your biggest problem. This is why you continue to score an average of 6% in regular involvement in the neighborhoods and local community events. If you have a majority of community centers that are not operating programs and/or activities on a daily basis to engage the residents, then how do you expect to build vibrant, healthy, sustainable communities? Okay? Understand that the reason why in most cities community centers are owned and operated by the government is because they set the overall direction of the municipality through their role as a policy maker. I cannot create the policies and programs for community centers to make sure they are working as they should. Only the government can do that. However, there is a way to fix this problem. Again, I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers, but I do believe the solution to this problem is for the Federal of Calgary communities, board of directors, community associations, and other community groups to partner with the local government to create the best healthy community approach, which is a process that helps everyone focus their efforts towards a common goal for that specific neighborhood to strengthen the social, environmental, and economic well-being of their community. Once the healthy community approach has been implemented, in no time you will see significant changes where residents are engaging more and connecting with one another. There are 4 key elements that are essential to creating the healthy community approach. 1 is the community participation. 2 is multi-sectoral partnerships. 3 is healthy public policy. And 4 is government commitment. As I mentioned before, communities need to be nourished and maintained, and what it boils down to is leadership. It is taking the initiative to create programs and policies to meet the basic needs of the residents to engage them. I believe that this could only be achieved with the support of the local government because it is at the municipal level that many of the policies and programs that most directly affect our well-being are made. The Federal of Calgary communities and other community groups, along with the support of the local government, should demonstrate their commitment to creating these healthy, vibrant, and sustainable communities. As for connecting people outside of their communities to places, there is no other development or establishment better than a thriving civic space. Mayor Nenshi had mentioned in his 2010 TEDx talk the need to increase civic engagement to promote connectivity amongst the people. When you take a look at Calgary civic spaces, for example, the Olympic Plaza, the plaza is a social gathering where people of all backgrounds meet for various fun and interactive activities. The skating rink is open to the public right now, and that's great, but what about those who don't skate? Could families, friends, and loved ones partake of any other fun winter activities at the plaza that does not involve skating? The answer is no. Families usually resort to indoor entertainment, which in a way defeats the purpose of connecting people to civic places. Don't get me wrong, guys. There is nothing wrong with indoor entertainment, but when it comes to outdoor fun activities, there needs to be more variety within the city. I would really love to see more outdoor activities happening within Calgary. I noticed there's more indoor than outdoor activities that happen year-round. Even going back to the recreational centers, I noticed that most rec centers are not equipped with outdoor facilities such as basketball courts. There is something missing from this city that would aid in promoting connectivity amongst the people. It acts like another platform minus the ice rink. It is an open public space commonly found in the heart of a traditional town used for community gatherings. What I think Calgary is missing more than anything is a downtown urban civic square. If you take, for instance, Toronto's Dundas Square or New York's Times Square, you would notice that there is never a dull moment, okay? There are daily activities and night activities. There is public visibility so you can see that civic square on any corner, okay? And normally civic squares are on active streets. Would this not be the ultimate approach to increase civic engagement and connect people to public places? Think about it, guys. This city loves a great event. Events are great ways to socialize and interact with others, so I know there should be no problem with connecting people to a civic square. In most cities, civic squares not only attract local residents, but it is usually a tourist attraction. Everyone meets up at civic squares. It is the place to be. It is suitable for open markets, free music concerts, which I love, and other events. Having a civic square in your city will attract businesses. Typically, civic squares are surrounded by small shops such as bakeries, meat markets, cheese stores, clothing stores, or shopping malls. Hope you guys are getting excited about that. All in all, it's about raising our quality of life and the standard of living by giving people many more choices for living an urban lifestyle in sustainable, convenient, and enjoyable places. When you take a look at downtown Calgary, there are a couple things I would like to point out. One, the streets become isolated after 6 p.m., and you know it. There are far too many, and second, there are far too many abandoned buildings and vacant spaces. So I started questioning myself, how could you get more people in the streets on a regular basis? Events, right? I mentioned earlier about civic squares and their role in engaging people through events. However, plazas work the same way. If you ran daily or regular night activities at the Olympic Plaza, I could almost guarantee you that there would be people in the streets past 6 p.m. If you don't set it up, they won't show. Right? It's that simple. So what happens is when people finish work at about 5 p.m. or so, they end up just going home. Okay? There's nothing connecting the people. Nothing. Okay? There is nothing connecting them to public places. The abandoned buildings and vacant spaces, I went around taking photos and video clips of the buildings, spaces, and its surroundings. I asked myself what could go here. Based on the surroundings, I thought of a few great ideas that would be perfect for that particular space. Personally, I feel that downtown needs revitalization, starting with those abandoned buildings. So I thought to myself, why not create a community initiative project to engage the public on what they feel those abandoned buildings and vacant spaces should be. I think this would be a great collaborative project. It would be fun and interactive, but most importantly, it would demonstrate the value of community, where people of all different backgrounds can come together for a great cause to share ideas. However, it would need the approval of the city to get started. A great leader once told me, if you do the right things long enough, inevitably you will achieve success. Despite the economic downturn, now is the time to see significant changes in our community. It's about having these heart-to-heart conversations with the community groups to create a healthy community approach that would benefit the people on multi-levels. Healthy, sustainable communities cannot create themselves. It takes strategic planning to create these communities and to sustain them. I think for a very long time, communities have been overlooked, which explains a lot. Your community involvement score on this year's Citizen Satisfactory Report has been averaging 6% over the last 5 years. How do you expect to create and sustain volunteers, entrepreneurs, and people wanting to take risks to improve the city in which they live? If you can't connect people to their communities, then you cannot connect them anywhere else. It's what happens within those communities that works its way out. I do believe that when the policies and programs have been implemented and community centers are supporting and giving back to the communities like they should, only then will people start to see the value of community. It's only then that people will start connecting because now it makes sense to them. What starts to happen is that people start to become supportive of their community centers and want to know how they can help, how they can get involved. When you give back to communities, they will give back to you. The community partnership with our local government will offer the best way forward. It will increase economic development and attract and retain talent. If we are to improve our city as a place to live, where it is welcoming and attractive to all families, then we need to build upon a shared vision for the future. I hope that this conversation was able to engage you and that you can reimagine what a better city would look like for our future. Thank you.